When Jake returned to his peaceful lake cabin after a month away, he found a for sale sign jammed into the dirt, a realtor's lockbox on his front door, and strangers walking through like they owned the place. The homeowners association had listed his property for sale without his permission, without his knowledge. Furious but calm, Jake didn't argue. He didn't yell. Instead, he drove straight into town, walked into a bank, and executed a plan that would leave the HOA president begging for mercy and calling 911. When she realized who really owned their precious clubhouse now, and what he was about to do with it, Jake parked his truck at the edge of the gravel driveway, the crunch beneath his tires eerily loud in the still afternoon air. The lake shimmered in the distance, serene and untouched, a stark contrast to the chaos he felt brewing in his chest. He climbed out slowly, eyes locked on the bold red and white for sale sign planted like a dagger in front of the cabin he'd owned for 12 years. His boots hit the ground with purpose. He walked up the porch steps and stopped dead at the sight of a lockbox hanging from the door handle. A paper flyer fluttered slightly in the summer breeze. He yanked it free. It was a listing sheet with photos of his cabin, details about the property, and the name of a local real estate agent, Janet Rowe, listed by HOA Realty Group. His name was nowhere on it. From inside, voices echoed to strangers. A couple in their 50s walked through his living room like they belonged there. The woman glanced at him through the window, smiled politely, and waved out. Jake didn't wave back. He unlocked the door with his own key, the only real one, and stepped in. The couple froze. "Can I help you?" Jake asked, voice calm but sharp. The man cleared his throat. "We were told the owner wasn't here, that it was an open house, listed by the HOA, I believe." Jake's jaw clenched. "I am the owner." There was a silence that could slice skin. The couple apologized profusely, stumbling over themselves to leave. Jake let them. He needed them gone. Once the door shut behind them, he pulled out his phone and called the HOA office. "Sunset Lake Homeowners Association, this is Brenda." Jake forced a breath. "Brenda, it's Jake Whitaker, Lot 47. My cabin's been listed for sale. Without my permission, I want answers." A pause, then a paper shuffle. "Jake, I see here that your dues were unpaid for 2 quarters, and that a notice of lien was issued." Jake's heart pounded. "I paid those dues last month. In full. I have the receipt." "Oh, well, the property must have entered automatic lien proceedings. We had to act." "You had to act by selling my home," he snapped. "Sir, calm down. You'll need to speak with President Mitchell. She'll authorize the listing under HOA Code 6.3. It's in the bylaws." Jake hung up. He didn't waste time. He drove straight to the HOA office, stormed past the front desk, and pushed open the door to the president's office. Inside, Pamela Mitchell sat behind a large mahogany desk, looking over papers, glasses perched on her nose like a queen surveying her land. "Jake," she said, as if expecting him. "Please, take a seat." "I'll stand," Jake replied. "Explain how you listed my cabin without so much as a call." Pamela leaned back, tapping her pen. "You neglected to submit your property use declaration this year. That, combined with late dues, placed you in non-compliance. Section 6.3 allows the HOA to recover properties deemed abandoned or neglected." Jake stepped closer. "Abandoned? I told you in April I'd be away for work. I emailed you." She shrugged. "We didn't receive it. Besides, the board voted. It's done." Jake's fists clenched. "I'm taking legal action." Pamela smiled coldly. "By the time it moves through court, we'll have sold it. Proceeds go to cover fees and the rest to you, of course minus penalties." Jake didn't respond. He stared at her, memorizing her smug expression, her casual dismissal of everything he'd built. When he spoke again, his voice was low, controlled. "You've made a mistake." He turned and walked out, but not before noticing a folder on her desk marked Clubhouse Financials. It was thick, messy, and full of red ink. That night, Jake didn't sleep. He pulled out every document he had. Payment receipts, HOA, bylaws, email logs, even old voicemail messages from HOA staff. He highlighted every line in Section 6.3, noting every vague loophole they'd twisted. But more than anything, he kept thinking about that Clubhouse Financials folder. Pamela had spent years flexing her power over the residents, enforcing petty rules, issuing fines, threatening legal action for minor violations. But Jake knew her type. She was the kind who overplayed her hand and underestimated her opponents. By morning, he had a plan. He contacted a real estate attorney, then a title researcher. He wanted to know everything about the HOA's property, especially the clubhouse, its history, its debt. A week later, he had what he needed. The HOA had quietly taken out a large loan using the clubhouse as collateral to fund a failed beautification project. They'd defaulted once already. The property was under financial strain and vulnerable. Jake smirked. He formed an anonymous LLC, Lakeshore Holdings, and approached the bank that held the clubhouse's note. With some negotiation and a cash offer, the bank agreed to sell the debt and the property to him, eager to get it off their books. In one afternoon, Jake became the legal owner of the HOA's most prized asset, the clubhouse. Gym, pool, meeting hall, all of it. He didn't tell anyone. Not yet. Instead, he quietly served them with notice. Asterisk, asterisk, effective immediately. All HOA operations at the clubhouse were suspended until a new lease agreement was signed under Lakeshore Holdings. At triple the rent, asterisk, asterisk, Jake waited for the storm, and he didn't have to wait long. Pamela Mitchell stormed into the HOA office the next morning, heels clicking hard against the tile, eyes blazing as she tossed the lease notice onto Brenda's desk. "What the hell is this?" she demanded. Brenda blinked, scanning the bold letterhead Lakeshore Holdings LLC. I don't know. Pamela, it came in the overnight mail, certified. Pamela grabbed her phone, dialing fast. "Get me our attorney now," she paced, reading the notice again. The language was clear and brutal. Asterisk, all HOA operations within the clubhouse property are immediately suspended, pending a signed lease agreement under new ownership. Failure to comply will result in legal action and forced removal. Asterisk, Pamela's hand trembled slightly as she ended the call. "No one buys our property without my knowledge," she muttered. 2 hours later, the HOA board sat in emergency session, eyes wide and confused. Jake arrived at the door.com, as ever, a folder in hand. Pamela stood to block him. "This meeting is for board members only," she snapped. Jake smiled coolly. "Good, then I'll join you." He stepped past her and laid the folder on the table. "You might want to sit for this." Pamela stared at him. "You don't belong here." Jake opened the folder, revealing the deed to the clubhouse and a copy of the purchase agreement. The board gasped as he slid the papers forward. "You all thought I'd just roll over," Jake said evenly. "But I don't fight fire with fire. I used the deed." Pamela snatched the papers, eyes darting over the signatures, the legal seals. "This is fraud." Jake shook his head. "This is business. Your clubhouse was collateral. Your debt was sold. I now own the property, and I'm tripling your rent, effective immediately." Brenda looked pale. "Pamela, is this real?" Pamela didn't answer. She was too busy trying to control her breathing. Jake leaned forward slightly. "You tried to sell my cabin under a fabricated lien. Now I own your precious headquarters. Consider us even. No, wait, not yet." He stood, collected his papers, and walked out. Pamela followed him into the parking lot. "You won't get away with this," she hissed. "The HOA will fight back. You don't understand how these things work." Jake turned slowly. "I understand perfectly. You used the rules to steal from me. I used the rules to take something from you. The difference, I'm just getting started." Back at his cabin, Jake surveyed the peaceful lake, his mind racing. The HOA had 30 days to vacate the clubhouse, or accept his new lease. But Jake knew Pamela. She wouldn't go quietly. He needed to tighten his grip. He made another call to the local news. 2 days later, a story aired. Asterisk, asterisk, Lake HOA under fire. Clubhouse sold. Residents furious over leadership's secret debts. Asterisk, asterisk, Pamela's face appeared on screen, her photo framed next to quotes about financial mismanagement and legal overreach. Residents began calling for her resignation. Jake watched from his porch, coffee in hand, as cars began arriving at the HOA office, neighbors demanding answers. By the end of the week, Pamela called an emergency community meeting. Jake attended, silent at the back. Pamela stood at the podium, makeup heavy to cover the stress lines now carved into her face. "We are working through a temporary leasing issue," she began, voice tight. "But let me be clear, this does not affect our authority." Murmurs rippled through the room. A man raised his hand. "Pamela, is it true the HOA tried to sell Jake Whitaker's cabin without notice?" She faltered. "That property was in violation." Jake stood. "Let's not dance around it. You tried to steal my home. Now I own yours." Gasps. Pamela's mouth opened, then closed. Jake walked to the front, holding up a set of keys. "These unlock the clubhouse. If you want them, pay the rent. If not, vacate in 7 days." Pamela stepped toward him, eyes wild. "You're bluffing." Jake tossed the keys onto the table. "Try me." The room exploded in argument. Residents demanded a vote. Pamela's voice was lost in the chaos. Jake walked out, leaving the storm behind. Later that night, Pamela pounded on his cabin door. Jake opened it slowly. "This is war," she hissed. "I'll have you arrested for trespass, fraud, whatever it takes." Jake raised an eyebrow. "Good luck. Everything I've done is legal. You, on the other hand, forged a lien. I have proof." Pamela's face paled. Jake leaned closer. "You can leave quietly, or I can keep digging." Pamela stepped back, eyes burning with hatred. Jake shut the door. In the following days, HOA staff began moving their operations into a rented trailer on the edge of the neighborhood. The clubhouse remained dark, locked, its gates chained with a notice posted, "Private property. Note, trespassing." Pamela was silent. Jake waited. Then, one morning, a 911 dispatcher picked up a call. "This is Pamela Mitchell, HOA president at Sunset Lake. There's a man here locking us out of the clubhouse. He's claiming he owns it. I need police now." Jake smiled as the cruiser pulled up. It was time. The police cruiser rolled to a slow stop in front of the clubhouse, blue lights flashing silently. Pamela stood on the steps, arms crossed tightly, A small group of HOA board members huddled behind her like confused children. Jake stood calmly by the entrance, leaning against the railing, keys in hand, a folded document under his arm. Officer Green stepped out, adjusting his sunglasses. He knew both of them. He had ticketed Jake once for a busted taillight years ago, and Pamela, she called the station every other week for petty complaints, barking dogs, misplaced trash bins, unauthorized parking. All right, what's going on here? He asked, approaching the group. Pamela rushed forward, pointing an accusatory finger. He's trespassing. This is HOA property. He's locked us out illegally. Jake didn't move. He extended the document. Deed, transfer officer. The clubhouse is no longer HOA property. Green raised an eyebrow but took the paper. He studied it for a moment, flipping through the notarized pages. After a long pause, he looked at Pamela. This is legitimate, he said flatly. Property deeds in his name. He's well within his rights. Pamela's voice cracked. This is fraud. He tricked the bank. This is a hostile takeover. Green sighed. That's a civil issue. Pamela, if you've got a complaint, take it to court. But right now, he's not trespassing. You are. The board members murmured nervously. Brenda looked like she wanted to vanish. Pamela's eyes narrowed. You can't let him get away with this. Jake finally spoke. You got caught, Pamela. You tried to steal my cabin. I used the law to take back control, and I'm not done. Pamela's lips trembled as she spun on her heel, storming toward her car. She slammed the door and drove off, tires squealing. The board scattered, leaving Jake and Green alone. Green chuckled. You always this calm when you burn someone's world down. Jake shrugged. I don't burn. I rebuild. Green handed back the deed. Well, you're clear here. Just keep it peaceful. Jake nodded, watching the cruiser drive away. With the clubhouse now empty, Jake got to work. He hired contractors to renovate the building, replacing the aging gym equipment, repainting the interior, and installing modern security systems. Signs went up around the property. Lakeshore Wellness and Event Center, grand reopening soon. Residents stopped by, curious. Jake explained, kindly but firmly. This is no longer HOA property. Membership will be open but not free. Reasonable rates, fair rules, no hidden fees. Word spread fast. Pamela, meanwhile, was unraveling. She called emergency board meetings, threatened lawsuits, and even tried to rally residents to protest. But with no clubhouse, no funds, and mounting pressure from neighbors, her power dwindled. The final blow came at the annual HOA election. Residents packed into a rented hall, tension high. Pamela stood at the front, trying to regain control. We've been under attack. External forces are trying to dismantle our community's structure. Someone stood from the crowd. You mean Jake, the guy who saved us from your financial disaster? Applause. Pamela's face tightened. Another voice called, out. Where did the clubhouse loan money go, Pamela? She faltered. We invested in improvements like the $40,000 landscaping project that never happened. A man interrupted. Boos erupted. Pamela raised her hands. Order. I'm still the president. Brenda stood quietly and read a resignation letter. Pamela Mitchell, due to loss of confidence and financial mismanagement, the board has voted you out effective immediately. Pamela's jaw dropped. She looked around the room, searching for support, but found none. Jake stood at the back, silent. Pamela stormed out, past him, shoulders stiff. Jake watched her go, then stepped forward as residents turned to him. I don't want control of the HOA, he said clearly, but I won't stand by while people are bullied or manipulated. I'll keep the clubhouse open for the community. No politics, no power games. There was a pause, then applause. Real, heartfelt. Over the next few weeks, things changed. The new HOA leadership worked transparently, ditching petty rules and focusing on real maintenance. Jake's Lakeshore Center became a hub. Yoga classes, community events, and even a weekend market on the lawn. One evening Jake stood on the porch of his restored cabin, watching the lake shimmer in the fading light. His phone buzzed. A message from a neighbor. Thank you for standing up for us. The neighborhood feels different now. Better. Jake smiled, slipped the phone into his pocket, and walked inside. Justice had been served, not with revenge but with power, strategy, and peace. 2 months later, summer settled fully over the lake, casting golden light across the water each morning, and long shadows over the quiet trails by evening. Jake's cabin had never looked better. Fresh paint, new windows, and a repaired dock, where he now spent mornings sipping coffee. The calm lapping of the water, a steady rhythm of peace. But peace never lasted long in a neighborhood, still adjusting to change. Jake was stacking firewood by his porch when Brenda arrived, nervously. Stepping out of her car, she looked unsure, holding a manila envelope like it might explode. Jake, she called, hesitant. He turned, wiping his hands. Brenda, everything all right? She approached slowly. Pamela's not done. I thought you should see this. Jake took the envelope, opened it. Inside were copies of documents, a civil complaint. Pamela had filed a lawsuit against Jake, claiming emotional distress, property interference, and financial sabotage. He laughed quietly, shaking his head. She's desperate, Brenda said. The board voted to distance from her entirely. Work board, filing to officially strip her of any remaining privileges, but she's threatening to drag this through the courts for months. Jake folded the papers carefully. Let her, I've got time. But that night, as he sat at his desk, looking over the complaint, he realized it wasn't just about her anymore. Pamela wanted a fight, not for justice, but to regain control, to punish him for exposing her failure. He needed to end this, not just legally, but publicly. The next morning, Jake called in a favor, a local investigative reporter, Elise Carter, who had been following the HOA fallout. He offered her something no one else had, access to the entire paper trail. Emails, meeting minutes, financial documents, even the original lien Pamela tried to fabricate against his cabin. Elise arrived that afternoon. Jake laid it all out. Tell the real story, not about me, about how one person used power to control an entire neighborhood, and what happens when people stop accepting it. 3 days later, the story aired. *** Lake community uncovers HOA corruption. Documents reveal years of abuse, illegal listings, and misused funds. *** Pamela's name was everywhere in email. Screenshots, recorded HOA meetings, even anonymous. Testimonies from former board members. The story spread fast, picked up by regional news. And soon the county's legal office took interest. Jake stood by the lake again, watching ducks glide over the glassy water, when the call came. Mr. Whitaker, this is Deputy Monroe, County Legal Affairs. We're opening an investigation into Pamela Mitchell based on recent evidence. We'd like your cooperation. Jake agreed without hesitation. The following weeks moved fast. Pamela, once the unchallenged queen of Sunset Lake, was now facing real consequences, court dates, depositions, and mounting pressure. Her lawsuit against Jake was quietly dropped, replaced by her own frantic attempts to avoid criminal charges. One morning, Jake watched as a sheriff's car pulled into her driveway. From his porch, he saw her step outside, argue, then surrender, wrists bound, her face pale and defeated. News traveled fast. Neighbors stopped Jake at the market, on the walking trails, at the Lakeshore Center. Thank you, Jake, they said, for not backing down. But Jake never saw it as a victory. It was survival for his home, for his peace, and for a neighborhood that had forgotten it didn't need a tyrant to stay beautiful. Months later, the Lakeshore Center held a community festival. Kids played in the grass. Live music echoed from the stage, and food trucks lined the path. Jake walked among friends, no longer the guy who fought the HOA, but just Jake, neighbor, cabin owner, lake dweller. Brenda found him by the fire pit that evening. Feels different now, doesn't it? She said. Jake nodded. Free. The fire cracked, soft embers rising into the night sky. Pamela was gone. The clubhouse was thriving, and Jake, he finally had what he wanted, not revenge, not power, but respect and peace that couldn't be listed for sale. If you enjoyed that story of sweet justice and power done right, don't forget to hit that like button. It really helps. Want more stories where the underdog flips the script? Subscribe now and turn on notifications so you never miss the next wild twist. And hey, share this video with someone who loves a good revenge story. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.